Hey everyone, I am so glad that you could join us for this live walkthrough of ProPresenter 7.1. It is super exciting. I'm really glad that you are able to join us from wherever you are because honestly, the last time that we spoke in a live stream like this, it was at the beginning of a global pandemic, and here we are today. We made it through it. I'm really glad that you're here, and I'm grateful for what you've been doing for your churches during this season, caring for your communities, helping get the message of Jesus out, and sharing all of that during this crazy time. And so we are so grateful for you and what you're doing in your local communities. Today, I'm actually joined by Cody from the Renewed Vision team, and I'm going to see if we can switch over. There's Cody. Hey, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
I am doing well, Cody. And Cody, you are in Austin, Texas. You recently moved in the middle of the pandemic, right?
Yep, that was fun.
I can imagine that seems like something I don't really want to have to deal with, but I'm glad that you made it there safely and that you could join us. I'm controlling a bunch of different things here. Hopefully everything goes smoothly today during this live stream. If you have questions throughout the live stream, Cody is here to ask me some, but he's also watching the conversation. And so if you're dropping in questions into the comments about things that you want to know or learn, Cody will prompt those and send those over. So enter into that chat, enter into that conversation, and you can leave all of those there in the comment feed. Cody.
Um, I was just curious. I know you kind of get to see the software ahead of time before other people do, so that you can work on tutorials and get ideas and that sort of thing. So when you found out about the new live streaming capabilities, like what was your initial thought, response, reaction?
Yeah, I think it was when I first heard about it, I was like, oh my goodness, churches are going to freak out because there's been, this was one of those features that people asked for. And, I remember in different Facebook groups like a couple years ago, like, what do you want to see in the next version of ProPresenter? And people are like, live streaming. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? Why would we ever do live streaming ProPresenter? That doesn't make any sense. And so I know that people have been looking for it. I know people have been wanting it. And so I think it's just really awesome to finally see it in there and see just the huge amount of possibilities. That was my reaction. Yeah, when I first checked it out. So
That's great. I know for me, as someone coming in from the Renewed Vision side of things, I found out about it just slightly before you did, So I was kind of in that excitement level of I'm going to share this with people. I know it's going to make a huge impact for churches who want to be able to stream, and as they get back into their buildings, continue to stream there and do it with ease, making it easy for the volunteers to use that sort of thing. And then obviously on the reliability side of things, we've heard some terror stories from some other software for live streaming. So to be able to switch over to something that may have a little bit more reliability, that's a goal too. So.
yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, like I'm super excited. I was just talking to somebody yesterday. I think it was yesterday. The days they all merge together right now. But I think I was talking to somebody yesterday who was like, "Hey, we were trying to figure out live streaming. We're trying to figure out what to do, and we want to do all this stuff and all these inputs and all this." And I'm like, "Okay, so this is like typically what would be said, but here's the release that just happened for ProPresenter, and like." I'm not just telling you about this because like I do tutorials for them. I'm telling you about this because I think it's like the best option for you. And I think it's going to give you a bunch of flexibility and features that you may not see in some of those other softwares. So yeah, I'm equally excited about that for sure. Cody, do we have anything else that you want to cover before we kind of dive into what's new in 7.1 and just kind of get started? Or do you want to, do we have any comments already coming in?
We do. Actually, someone asked, is ProPresenter now able to get rid of the need for OBS? So I think that can kind of drive where you start off with the conversation and move forward with showing off some of the settings.
Yeah, so there are definitely differences between OBS and live streaming, and that was what we talked about the last time we were here. And I would say that we're never going to push people to like just use something for the sake of using it. You always have to take into consideration what's best for your situation and for your scenario. So there are differences between the two things, and as we kind of dig into what's going on here and what you're capable of doing, you'll see whether or not live streaming from ProPresenter or sending ProPresenter to a video switcher or to another streaming box is the right workflow for you, because there's just different workflows for different scenarios, is the way that I would answer that. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Cody, before I kind of jump in and start showing those features.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that when we came up with this new feature update, we weren't thinking, oh, this is going to be the thing that everyone needs to go do. We realized that every church has different setup. Every church has different needs. And while there may be churches that already have an amazing live production setup using other software or other hardware, that doesn't mean they need to switch over to a ProPresenter solution. But maybe ProPresenter can be some sort of solution mixed in with their other solutions somehow. Like I said in the last video that we did, there's the example of a large multi-site church might be doing something off campus and they just want a quick and easy setup. They don't want to take all their stuff with them. They can plug it right into ProPresenter and go live from there. So there are definitely setups for specific situations that maybe you think the OBS's functions, Wirecast functions, those are better for you guys, then stick with that. That's awesome. I will say that one of our desires is to continually improve the features of switching and live streaming within ProPresenter, so that does become something that could be used for just about anyone. But at this point, it definitely makes sense to find what is the best solution for you, whether that's using our software or continue to use other hardware software solutions.
Yeah, and I would resonate with all of that. And like you said, there's so much flexibility in ProPresenter. There's so many features, there's so many options that adding this in here now makes it an even more flexible solution to throw on the fly, or in different scenarios where you're like, I don't know if we would have done live streaming here or we would have recorded video here, but now you can say yes to those things. So hopefully it makes it easier for you to do the different things that you're wanting to do. So I'm going to jump into the software and we're going to start talking about video inputs and how to bring those in and the streaming capabilities and all of that. But as I go through this, make sure you guys jump in the comments, ask questions. Cody will continue to filter those through. He's on the call the whole time. So I'm going to switch over to the computer here, and we're going to start talking about this. So let's see. Are we good? I feel like, there we go. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. So in ProPresenter, I'm staring at my multi-screen across the room right now, so that's why I was a little confused if I was showing the right thing or not. So inside ProPresenter, in 7.1, you have a brand new button here above your preview area, this live button. And when you click on that, you get two different options: start capture and capture settings. We're going to look at capture settings first. And here is where all of the settings and stuff get set up for you. So the big idea is that you are going to stream a screen, and that screen can be an audience screen or it can be a stage screen. And there's actually different reasons why you would use one versus the other, because audience screens and stage screens can kind of handle things a little bit differently. And so you have some unique opportunities depending on which screen type you select. And these screens don't have to be physically connected. These screens can be just a placeholder screen. So if we would go to screens and go to configure screens, you'll see here, we'll just move these side by side, you'll see here that this stream screen that I have set up is just a placeholder. And that placeholder means that it's not being sent out to a physically connected display. It's not being sent out to a network display via like Siphon or NDI or another screen via Siphon. It's just kind of a placeholder for a screen. So you don't even have to have it physically connected. Now that's the screen that you're going to send online, and that screen can get different content or different versions of your content than your main outputs. Okay, so that's the source deal. So right now I have it set to stream, but we could set it to our main output or a stage display if we want to. Then you have your main options here of destination, and that's disk or RTMP. Now, disk allows us to just record to a local disk, and this is really great for when you want to maybe record your lyrics and overlay them over video. So if you're, editing worship sets right now, you're still not meeting in person, everything is pre-recorded, you're just creating a video feed to show on a Sunday morning, and you're recording all this earlier during the week, and you want to not have to input every single lyric inside of Premiere or Final Cut, you can do all of that with the recording features right inside of ProPresenter. So you can use some of the options here. So let's take a look. We have the options in here. If you're on the Mac, you're going to want to use HAP Alpha or one of these bottom two ProRes options. I get really sick of saying 4444. It's just a lot of words, but
Same.
it's just a lot, right, Cody? So one of these bottom two options on the PC, these are not available, so you're going to want to use HAP Alpha as your option if you want to have that transparent background where you can easily overlay that video over top of your other, multicam video shoot, or your cool, 12 people on the screen at one time, or crazy virtual choirs with 1,000 people on the screen at one time, whatever you might be doing. Those are the codecs that you would want to use there. You can also use 264, 265, or any of the other presets just to record the output. So if you wanted to use a recording of just teaching notes or something like that to cut between with a video, you could do that as well. And then finally you have your resolution, which is independent of the resolution of your screen when you initially set it up. So even though my stream screen, when we pulled up the screen configuration, was set to 1920 by 1080, I can record it at 1280 by 720 or throw in a custom setting, and it's just going to scale everything up or down to meet that resolution, and so you don't have to be totally reliant on whatever that placeholder is set up as. And then the same for frame rate. Your frame rate, you can set whatever you want, between 24 and 60 frames per second for recording. And then when we get to RTMP, you have all of your options here for streaming. So one of the things to know about streaming is you're going to go to a streaming provider. If you're not familiar, you've been just doing like throwing stuff on premieres on YouTube or Facebook Live. When you actually start streaming, you have to have a streaming address, and you're going to a streaming server. And now how most people are doing streaming is they're using multi-streaming services. Instead of sending multiple streams up from your computer to all of these different destinations, I'm going to send one to Facebook and one to YouTube and one to Twitch and one to my streaming provider that goes to our church online platform and one to who knows where. All of that requires more internet bandwidth. It requires you to send more upload speed from your physical location. Instead of doing that, send one high quality stream to a stream distribution platform. This is like Restream.io or Caster.io. I think like Living as One does this. There's a bunch of different services that include this kind of stream distribution, and this is a much better way to go because again, you only have one stream, you can send the best quality, and then you can let those streaming providers take care of all the different qualities and all of that kind of stuff. So even though there's only one option in here right now, you can still stream to multiple destinations. So as we go back in here, you'll see the stream address, and even though this says RTMP, it can be RTMP or RTMPS, which is what like Facebook requires. And then you're going to be given a stream key. It's kind of like the password to send your stream, and then the encoding settings, anywhere from low quality 360p all the way to high quality 1080p. And then you have an option to save a local copy, and it's going to save it to whatever location you choose here, and it's going to save it using these settings here. So if you're streaming a 1080p stream, it's going to record a 1080p file for you. So you can stream and record at the same time. So that's kind of your basic overview of the streaming settings inside ProPresenter. Cody, do we have any questions so far before I move on to the next part?
Yeah, you did answer one. Someone asked, can you stream to more than one destination from ProPresenter? Yeah, so currently no, but like you said, Brad, the best choice really is going to be to stream just one high quality stream and then have every streaming service do that for you. In the future, we would love to be able to do 2 streams from ProPresenter, because I know that would be a cost saver for a lot of churches who are using those services though. Someone asked, would HAP be okay if I'm recording to video background as well, or should I use H.264/H.265?
Yeah, so a lot of that just kind of comes down to file size and bitrate quality that you want. So the HAP and ProRes settings are going to be much higher quality video files that you can do a lot inside your editor with. You can do a lot more color correction and all of that kind of stuff with those file sizes and or those files. And the reason those files allow for alpha is because of the higher quality. Those codecs allow for that, where H.264 doesn't allow for you to record with an alpha channel. And so if you just need a lower quality file that you're just going to immediately upload to the internet, H.264 or 265 could work for you really well. But if you're wanting to have a really high quality, all your frames are perfectly in sync, all of that stuff, those formats are much higher quality than an H.264 file, where it's kind of like setting a frame every once in a while and then figuring out information in between, and it's just not near as high a quality because the file size is so much smaller. But with ProRes and with HAP, you're going to have very large file sizes, so you need to have a good amount of hard drive space. And when you're recording that kind of file, it's really best practice to have like solid state drives in your computer. If you have old spinning disk drives, you might start noticing performance issues just with anything when you're recording such a big file. So if you ever run into some of that and you have an older computer with those spinning disks inside of it, that could be one of the reasons there. So I think that answers that, right, Cody?
Yeah, definitely, that does. And then along the same lines, they said, what is the actual file type that a codec like ProRes 4444 or HAP creates? I actually don't know. Do you know the answer to that one?
So ProRes is usually wrapped in a .mov container. So .mov is just kind of a container for video formats that are inside of it. So just because something says .mov, it doesn't really mean that it's a .mov. It could have H.264, or it could have ProRes inside of it, or it could have Photo JPEG inside of it. It could have a bunch of different formats inside of there. I haven't used the HAP preset before, so I'm not really sure what container that comes inside of. But yeah, it'll only take a couple seconds to record and find out. So
cool. A lot of people are asking audio questions, and I know we're going to get to that in a little bit. So I'm not going to get all those questions asked or answered yet, just because I know you're going to cover that a little bit. So if you want to go ahead and keep going on with what you were working on, and then we can get to more questions in a little bit.
awesome. So now we're going to talk about setting up those live video inputs, because streaming ProPresenter, streaming just like lyrics and video is nice, but like that's not, really what you want to be able to do. You want to be able to see somebody like me or Cody or whoever, gorgeous people like us with hair that just hasn't been cut in months and months. You want to see us on your stream. And so, Cody, you were supposed to laugh at that because I don't have an
I was muted.
Okay, perfect. I don't have an audience, but now I have at least somebody who can laugh at my terrible jokes. But you want to be able to see people, and so bringing in video is a big part of it. So let's look at how we can do that. So inside ProPresenter, in your media bin, if you don't see your media bin, we have our media button here that we can click in the top right corner. And you have your media bin where you can have playlists, and like I have all the sample content loaded in here, but at the bottom you'll see video input. And when we select that, you might not see anything there at first. So the first thing you'll want to do is hit add media, and you're going to want to go to video input configuration. Now in here, you can set how many different video inputs you want to have. I recently saw that Paul figured out that there's a limit to, I believe, 8 video inputs right now, which seems like plenty for most people.
That's realistic.
Yeah, it's pretty realistic for what a computer can handle processing and all of that. So let's say if we added another video input here, we could choose the source of this. So you can see we have a few different sources in here. I have my intensity shuttle that's hooked up to this computer. And this computer is an older, this is actually a 2013 iMac. This is a very old computer that I recently just cleared the whole hard drive, refreshed it, brought it up to a brand new, to the latest operating system, and it just is doing ProPresenter for me right now. So this has Thunderbolt 2, and so it has an intensity shuttle hooked up to that. The intensity shuttle can take in HDMI or composite. It takes in a bunch of different formats. But this is an old computer running an older piece of hardware. And so that's that. And then we got our FaceTime camera, and then I got NDI running out of another version of Pro 7 on another computer in this room right now. So those are the different inputs that you see there. You have a description here, and that description shows up above the input number. So you'll see down here, input 1, ATEM, input 2, FaceTime, input 3 is playback, and that's that other version of ProPresenter, that other computer running ProPresenter on the network. So that's how you add your video inputs. So you're gonna like add them in here, but you'll see that I added this fourth one, but we don't see anything here. And that's because we need to go back into our interface and say we want to add in input 4. And so now that input 4 would show up. Now that doesn't have anything attached to it, so it's not actually going to show anything. But now I'm going to make sure that, let's bring in Cody. And so here is Cody coming into the interface here, warning him so he's not looking at his phone or checking the comments too much. But that's what we. So I'm bringing in video from my video switcher, and so I have an ATEM HD Studio or Studio HD that is switching all my video. I'm actually using the aux from that switcher. So the version of the ATEM that I have has not only a program out of all of like whatever's currently live, but it also has a aux out where you can send like a dedicated feed. No matter what else you're doing on the switcher, it's always going to send this output. So right now I'm sending Cody's output, his video from the switcher to this computer that I'm on right now. But I could easily switch that to mine, or I could switch that to the program feed, just so you kind of understand what's going on behind the scenes here. So let's head back to the Mac here, and so I'll just switch this over to me. So now you can see this awesome side profile shot where you can't even see my face because my hair's getting so crazy dang long. Or we could switch over to the program feed, and we can just like go all sorts of crazy infinity on it, and you're seeing my screen capture and then the screen capture inside of the screen capture there. I'm going to go back to Cody's feed just so we can show a few things here. And so we have that feed inside the program. Now, one thing that everyone is asking about is how do you get audio in? So I know that's how to get a video feed in. How do you get audio into the program? And the answer is that the audio has to be embedded with video. Currently, there is no way to bring in like a separate USB capture card or anything like that natively. There are some workarounds that Cody has messed around with that, if you absolutely need to do it immediately, there are some ways that you can kind of work around with it. But your audio has to be embedded with video, and it typically needs to come in via SDI or NDI. So any NDI feeds that are coming into the computer that have audio, it'll show up that way, and any SDI feeds that are coming through, like a Decklink Duo or a Decklink Quad, those will also come in. My Intensity Shuttle is a HDMI in, and that is also bringing in audio because I'm taking all the audio from my soundboard that goes into my ATEM switcher, and then out of the switcher I get a video and audio embedded feed together, and that's coming in via my Intensity Shuttle, and that's bringing audio in. And that's why when we go back to the interface here, you'll see you'll see this metering in the interface here, and so you can tell that audio is coming through. Now, there are some known things, and I don't know the technical stuff behind it of why one device would work, but maybe another device doesn't work, because I know that the ATEM Mini and the ATEM Mini Pro, when you hook those up as, they show up as webcam sources, right, Cody?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and so when those come in, the audio is not showing up. And so Cody worked on a little workaround to get that using NDI and some screen capture stuff. So there are some ways around it, but that's currently how to get audio in. Does that answer all those questions, Cody, or is there any other ones that we can answer from the chat?
Someone said if you switch video, does it stay with that audio, or can you get to yeah? If you switch video, does it stay with the audio you're switching to, or can you get to stay with the current one? I'll say currently it switches to whatever source you have live. So if you have one video live, the audio for that video will be live. We do have plans, obviously, to make it so it's more controlled coming up soon. And same with the audio input. It's it's hard to say it's a deal breaker for it to right now, because there are ways to bring it in. Like if you're capturing your audio via NDI or SDI, which is what most churches are doing currently, they can easily get their audio in through their capture device by embedding it in their camera feed. But I also realized that there are so many other uses, like using your your FaceTime camera, or if you want to bring in I have a Canon EOS camera that shows up as a webcam. My A10 Mini Pro obviously does not bring the audio in currently to ProPresenter. And so there are tons of things where we would love to bring that functionality to the software as well. But like I said, in some of the posts that we've gone through, there is a workaround for that. If you have Windows, you can use the NDI scan tool to bring your video and audio in really easily to ProPresenter, and it's super reliable. I'm not sure about for Mac yet, but that is just like a current solution. Obviously not a long-term solution, since we have plans soon to get audio to ProPresenter.
And when Cody says soon, we mean we don't have an answer for you on the date. So if you ask in the chat right now, no one's going to say it's going to be 1 week away or 1 month away. It means it's being worked on, and we hear you, and we want to bring those features in. But development's hard. You can't always give an exact date of when something is going to be finished developing. There we go. The word didn't want to come out, but. Yeah, so it is being worked on, and or it's something that's going to be available down the line in the future, and something that Renewed Vision wants to provide. So we're excited about that. Now, when we're talking about live video, and we go back into the program here, like we can bring in 4 different video sources, but at the end of the day, the ideal way to do it is similar to the way that I'm doing it right now. And that's you bring in one feed, and then that feed is your fully switched. All your camera angles are switching in there. So if I could switch to Cody, and we could switch to me, and all this switching is happening in our video switcher. And then ProPresenter is just receiving that fully switched feed, and then it can overlay graphics. It can do all of the things that it does so amazingly well, and then it can stream that feed. Now you can go through and switch sources. But one of the problems that you actually run into is when you're running lyrics and switching video, those are at 2 very different paces. Depending on what you're doing, you might have, let's say, some scripture on the screen, and it's like a paragraph of scripture on the screen, and your pastor is talking about that for like 5 minutes. You want to switch to 3 different camera angles during that 5 minutes multiple times. So switching between all of that at the same time is not super straightforward, and honestly, it's not going to be the best case for your operator. It's going to make their job really crazy to say, hey, you should be switching between 8 cameras and running lyrics and recording to your hard drive, and you're a volunteer who showed up here 15 minutes before the service began. I hope you're ready. That's not a great place to put our volunteers in, or anybody who's running the program. And so one of the best ways, again, is to have a dedicated video switcher that you're switching all your video feeds, and then you're bringing in one feed inside the program, and then you can do all of your overlays, throw in video, and then you can stream that content out. So that's kind of like one of the best use case scenarios for your live video, but you can do some really interesting things. So let's start looking at like how to overlay lyrics and how all of our layers work and that sort of thing. So back in the interface here, we got my video here, and if we would go to a song and click on some lyrics, it's going to show up over top. But if I go from my main output to my streaming output, you'll see that I have this lower third version. And again, this is set up via looks. We talk about looks a lot during tutorials because there's so many different powerful uses of it. And so I have 2 different screens here. This screen has a custom theme that's being applied to the presentation layer. So I just created one just called Brad's. We could switch this out, and now it has kind of a black background on it. So now if I would switch over to Cody's feed, we have text over top of him there, and we got our cool shot and all of that kind of stuff. So we can easily go through that. Now, if you wanted to switch or automatically trigger a video feed while you're going through slides, let's say you would do this kind of like you normally do with a motion background. You can just take your, is my mouse dying? Uh-oh, that would not be good. Hey, lost connection. Oh no. Hey, there we go. We gained our connection back. Sorry about that. So we could take our video input 1 here, and we could just drop this right at the beginning of the song. So now when I click on this, it's automatically going to trigger that video to play. Or I could click on this guy, and this is my FaceTime camera, and when I click on this, it's going to automatically trigger this, and so now that's going to show up, and now I can throw my lyrics on top of this. Now this camera is not a great looking camera, especially in this lighting. My hair is glowing. I'm on, you know, it's just it's a glowy mess there. But that's how we could switch between those two different things. So you can switch between different camera feeds by just clicking down here or by adding it to slides, and as you click on slides, it would switch camera feeds. But again, if that camera feed is just sitting there and not changing, it's going to mean I got one camera feed all the way up until maybe the chorus. And now at the chorus, which lasts for 1.5 minutes, we have another camera feed, which pacing wise during a worship set, you're probably going to want to show more than one camera during that time. So it's not. That's why I was talking earlier about separating kind of video switching from lyrics, but bringing in that fully switched feed inside the computer there. So this is a great use of showing those lyrics on here. And again, we could make our content be a little different on each screen. So we could go in and we could say screens, edit looks, and we could say on the main screen, I want to disable the video input. But on the streaming screen, I want the video input, but I want to turn off maybe the media layer. So our main screen has the media and slide layers, and our streaming screen has the video input and slide layers, and it's a different looking version of it. So now I could go to my sample content here, and I'm going to actually add a new slide here. So I'm just going to click add slide. And we have a new slide here, and I'm going to go to liquid metal, throw this guy in here. And currently there's no way to trigger a video, live video and a background at the exact same time on the exact same slide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a go to next timer for this.
Brad,
yeah.
I was just curious, did you try doing it via an action first? Because right now you have the FaceTime, or you have that pulled in there. If you like right click and try create an action.
I haven't, you know, that is a really good question. I will try that right now and see.
So if you just right click the background slide.
No, it removes the other, I believe. We'll see. We'll see what happens here. So if I click on this, yeah, we're not getting anything playing to the background layer on. It's removed that background. So again, if we throw this here, I'm right-clicking, adding a go to next. I'll just remove this and do that again. We're going to add a go to next timer. We're going to set this to 0 seconds and hit done. So now when I click on this, it's automatically going to start my FaceTime camera up and start that motion background. So my stream, now when I click on this, my stream is getting this, and my main output is getting this. So we're getting two different versions with different content being sent to those different screens, and this one is what's being streamed live, and this is what is maybe showing in your room. So you don't necessarily even have to show the live video inputs in your room. You could just show your normal backgrounds just like you normally would, but on your live stream you're showing, you know, maybe a shot of your stage. So maybe you only have one camera and you're just going to show a static wide shot of your stage, or you're going to slowly push in and push out with that camera. You could do that with that one video input there. So that's a couple ways that you can do that. Cody, do we have any other questions coming in as I kind of get us reset here from this first little experiment?
Yeah, I realize that we already have talked about switching and getting video in, but some people are asking, like, how do they actually get the video into their computer, and like what hardware to use. I don't know if you want to chime in on that at all. Right now, I know you're using a Blackmagic Intensity Shuttle, something like that, which is a little bit older of a device, and it's working. So that's cool. Obviously, I have an A10 Mini Pro, and I can take the signal out of that. That's a 4-channel switcher. It's very cheap. The Mini Non-Pro is even cheaper, so that's a good option too if you want to get multiple video switching and then that one signal into the computer. There are other stuff. There's other stuff like the yeah,
so like the mini recorder is one of the options that you could use. And I believe that's Thunderbolt 2. That might be Thunderbolt 3, or it might actually.
Thunderbolt 2, but it's limited to 1080-30. So if you have a 60 coming in, you would have to switch it to a 1080-30 signal to come in.
Gotcha. So that is a little bit of a limitation there. I know that you can also use like Decklink cards, so the Decklink Duo, the Decklink Quad.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Those are great devices that you can use. And if you don't have a computer, those are actual like installable graphics cards. And so if you don't have a desktop PC or a Mac that you could actually install those into, you can get external enclosures. A lot of times they're made by this company they're called Sonnet. I think that's the name of the company. Maybe it's not, but there's these Sonnet enclosures, and you can find all this on the Renewed Vision website. They have a store with it all kind of bundled together. They just send you all the parts and pieces you need, or you can find those online, but you can get those cards, throw them in an external enclosure, and if you have Thunderbolt 3, you can plug in that externally, and so you're kind of running all of that external to the computer, just like you would do with my Intensity shuttle. I don't know if I can, let me see if I can lift this guy up here without breaking everything. Let's hope not. So the shuttle here is just a simple guy. It has YP or YBR or whatever that is, the like split out versions of video, or it has just regular, the yellow, white, and red versions of video, S video, and then HDMI, and you can do in or out on that guy. So that's what I'm using here, because that's the only video input capture device that we have on hand, and it works great. So you don't necessarily need newer devices. I know people are using like the Elgato capture devices and Magwell and stuff like that. I know I've heard that those ones aren't bringing in audio currently, and so you'll just kind of have to check on the device as far as the audio side goes, but that's what it takes for video. Because remember, the HDMI cables you plug into your computer via those Thunderbolt adapters, those are only outputs. They are not inputs. You have to have capture cards. And because of the whole COVID thing and everyone live streaming, capture cards are kind of hard to come by, and video switchers are kind of hard to come by because everybody's buying them right now. So you just got to be patient and kind of plan ahead. So if you're thinking like, hey, we really should get this, head over and place an order soon so that you can have it in maybe 4 weeks or 6 weeks, because you're not going to have it in Amazon's previous 2-day delivery period. That doesn't seem to exist anymore. Yeah. So yeah, keep going, Cody, with questions.
Well, as I say, the mini recorder is like $150, so it's pretty inexpensive, and that brings both video and audio in via SDI, so that's a good solution too. I think even the HDMI in on that, if you get the HDMI version.
And my shuttle, I believe, was like $185 when I bought it years ago. I think that number sticks in my head for some reason. Yeah.
Someone says, so there is not a button that I push to make this stream. We've been using Switcher Studio, and it is a one-button deal. Yeah, it is a one-button deal, really. I mean, once you have it all set up, you just click, the Go Live button on the top, and then.
Yeah, you just click on Start Capture here. And so once your settings are set up, you don't have to really ever go back into this. You are just literally go in here, click on Live, and hit Start Capture. I don't have a destination set right now, and I don't really want to crash the program because I don't know what will happen if this doesn't have anything in it. So I'm going to set this back to disk. And so now if I go over and my mouse. Lost connection again. Come on, mouse. Sorry, guys. I don't know.
Should use a wired mice. You're in production, you know this.
I do, and the Apple mouse is just the worst. So, Cody, I think I'm gonna have to jump back to you and go grab some new batteries. So,
okay, that's fine.
Jumping back to you for a minute.
Thank you. Yeah. So, like he said, it's pretty easy. You just click the live button at the top and then capture. Once you already have your settings in there, you don't have to keep putting your settings back in there. Remember those settings. So that'd be very similar to with the Switcher Studio. It really is a one-button deal. And we have heard some comments in the group about people wanting to automate that more. And so we're looking at some options and ways that you can automate that. Yep, the HDMI mini recorder does bring in audio. Trackpad. I do not like trackpads. I can't get around fast enough with the trackpad, which is, I know other people say it's much faster, but even if I use a laptop, I want a mouse. I may have missed it. So the live, we can send it to our Boxcast we use to stream. I believe so. If Boxcast can receive a RTMP or RTMPS stream, then yes, you can send it to Boxcast. But I'm not sure what Boxcast's setup is. It says Church Online platform is not a streaming service. I know a lot of people will comment and say, can you stream to Church Online? You can stream to a service that uses Church Online platform as the interface that is visually seen on your website, but it's not actually a service you can stream to. So if you have Church Online platform set up on your website already, what that means is you're pulling in a YouTube feed, you're pulling in a Vimeo feed, or Living as One or some other feed to Church Online platform. And so can ProPresenter stream to that? Well, it's yes, but it's not actually streaming straight to that platform. What it's doing is it's streaming to YouTube or Vimeo or something else, and then you're embedding that feed on there for you to use.
Yeah, that's a really confusing one for a lot of people. I think I got my mouse working. So yeah, that's often, I think, just the name of Church Online platform. They're like, oh, it's a platform that does everything for me, and really, it's a web platform. Yeah. That allows you to have chat and all of those other features, but you still need to BYO, I don't know what the last letter would be, BYOV, bring your own video. So you got to bring your own video player. You got to bring your own streaming video feed in there. So that's that. Now that this is working, let me, at least I think it's working. You got to be kidding me if it doesn't work now. There we go. Okay, so let's go back on the computer here and look at a couple other things that you can do when you have a live video that are kind of fun. So let's say we are bringing in multiple video feeds. What can you do with that? Like, what other things could we do with that? Well, let's go to props. And one of the things we could do with props that I just set up here is just like a simple lower third. So we could easily throw up this lower third, and like if it was a better camera shot, there's a nice simple lower third that doesn't really say the right person's name, but we could edit that and fix that, and we can clear that out. So we can throw that lower third on there. The other thing that we could do is we could actually throw in more video. So let's go to our prop editor. We'll just click this edit button, or you can go to more and go to props editor. And in here, we're going to click the add button, and let's add a new prop. And so we'll add a new video input prop. And so with this video input, we're going to say, like, Cody's on the main screen here, but I'm going to set this video input to be my FaceTime camera. And so now I could do like a little picture-in-picture thing with Cody here. So I'll just set this up, and I'm going to set my preferences for this. I could go in and like make sure this box is perfectly 16 by 9, but instead what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say scale to fill. So it's going to scale up to fill that box, whatever size it is. So if I wanted to make it kind of more of a square feed, I could just do that. And then now when we go back to show and hit props here, I'll throw Cody on there, and then I'm going to throw this prop on. And now we have a picture-in-picture feed of me and Cody going on. And so you can see how you can do some really interesting things. You could also take this hello, so we're talking to each other, and we can do the whole thing, and you can see both of us at the same time. You could also go ahead.
I just want to interrupt you there. Someone had mentioned earlier, how can 7.1 help them with the Zoom meeting? I think there's some really cool, unique ways that you could do that, and you may even be able to do this more on the stage, this way layout kind of realm of things. I know we're not going to cover that too much right now, but being able to add in the props and bring in multiple videos, then like there's some really cool, neat things you could do with Zoom, even if you're having some sort of meeting. I mean, first off, you can bring your notes up in ProPresenter to be able to show on top of your Zoom feed, which is cool. And then you can bring in multiple videos. You could have your video next to you while you're bringing notes up. I mean, there's some cool ways you could do that. Those aren't things that are automatically like available. Like you just check this box and this look is already there yet. That'd be something that'd be cool for us to do in the future. But you can definitely make those looks yourself.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back into the props editor here and show you another really interesting thing we can do. So I'm going to select this video input, and like I said, the coloring on my FaceTime camera is awful. So I'm going to go into the inspector, and you can do effects just like you would do with video files. You can do with live video. So if I go if I go into effects here, I'm going to go to Brad's favorite that I always talk about, the 2-color effect. And it's just my favorite. it. So we're going to go in here and make me look like a motion background. So I'm going to do a 2-color effect, and I could like blur myself in or out, but like now I have this adjusted version of me. And so now when we go back to show, and I'm going to have to clear out that prop and just kind of re-engage it. So I'll clear that out and then re-engage my prop here. Now I have Cody live, and I have me live, totally color corrected, ready to be a Oompa Loompa.
I don't know if I would call that color correcting.
Well, I'm
that's
getting ready.
Color destroying.
I'm getting ready for my starring role in the new remake of Willy Wonka. Okay, I gotta. I'm eating too much of that candy, and I'm turning purple. So that's what's going on here. So you can do some really interesting stuff with that. The other thing that you could do is set that up on an actual slide. So I'm gonna go into, let's just go into this sample presentation here. I'm gonna add a new slide in, and let's go into our slide editor. Edit. And on this slide, we'll get rid of the text, and let's add in some video inputs. So I'm gonna add in one video. Whoops. We kind of scrolled a little too far. The new mouse has super batteries in it. So we're going to scroll this and make this about half the screen. And we should be able to lock this in place. Right there's half our screen. And I'm just going to copy and paste that and set up this on the other side here. I think I missed my halfway point, but we get the picture. So I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to set this to ATEM input 1. I'm going to set this guy to FaceTime. And now when we go and show this video file, it's actually going to show both of our videos on top of each other, but you'll notice that it's like showing this weird version of it, and we still have Cody in the background. So we could actually clear out that video layer, and now we have these two versions. If I go in here, I just have to change my scaling, because again, it's scale to fit. If I change this scale to fill, we can do cool nightly news guys here. So here's Cody and Brad live on the scene. Cody, what's the weather like there in Austin?
Hot.
Perfect. Cody, I'm going to recommend that you don't take a job in news. On the field reporting doesn't seem like a strength of yours when you just say hot. So don't take a job in weather. But you get the idea. You can do some really interesting things. And you could set this up. Let's say you wanted to set this look up, and this is on maybe playing to the presentation layer. I could go back to this song, and I could change this to play to the announcements layer, which is above the presentation layer. We can visualize that by going to Edit Looks, and we can see that the presentation layer where our current live video is playing back is here, and now this new song, Good Grace, is going to be on the announcements layer. So now when I click on these lyrics, it's going to go above our video files here. So you could set up some really interesting looks that are just kind of right below there and utilize them. Maybe move the text down below and stuff like that. But you get the idea there of some different things we can do. So hopefully that shows you some different interesting ideas of ways that you can use live video and ways that you can edit live video and show that. Cody, do we have any other questions that are coming in that we can answer?
Will this work with PTZ Optics NDI cam?
Yeah, I mean, it should work with any NDI source that ProPresenter can see. Is you can bring that in as video. So when I was if we go back here, I'm going to just clear this out a minute. When I was back in here and we went to our video input configuration, you'll see that this is an NDI source, this iMac. So if your camera is an NDI camera, it will show up inside ProPresenter, and you just set it up as a video input. So you don't have to have a capture card if you're bringing in NDI video. Now, the one thing to know is that when you're bringing in video via NDI, you do have possible lag because you're sending video across your network. And so getting a bunch of, you might be like, great, let's go get 8 NDI cameras and we could use all those inside ProPresenter. Getting 8 NDI cameras all synced up across your network is probably not going to be super easy just because it's a lot of data coming in and out. It's not necessarily an issue of ProPresenters, it's an issue of just your network traffic and all of that kind of stuff. So yes, you can bring in NDI cameras, but just be mindful that you might run into like sync issues where the audio and video are going to be out of sync with one another. Other questions, Cody?
Someone said they have a Mevo cam.
Oh yeah, the Mevo cam from Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, do you know how if that interacts with it? I don't know how that. I mean, I'm sure it has an HDMI out or something.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea what the output of that camera is. I'm not a fan of those cameras because
Hmm.
they it's a really great marketing for a camera that isn't necessarily right for most churches because it's a tiny little camera that you have to have super close to the stage. So now you have a camera in the front row that everyone can see, and it's just not a great scenario. But again, it just kind of comes down to what's the output. What output does that camera output? Does it output NDI? Does it output HDMI or SDI that you can bring into the correct capture card? If so, then you can bring it into the computer. So those are the things that you have to take into consideration.
Yeah. How do you set up screens for live streaming? Should you use looks? Should you stream a screen you already have or use a placeholder?
Yeah, I would recommend setting up a placeholder. It gives you the options to do whatever you want to do differently on that screen than you might on other screens. So you could say, like, I want to make sure the media layer doesn't show up on that live stream screen so that I never accidentally cover up my live video input. And like one quick tip, so if we go back to the computer here, this video file currently is playing to our, well, it's playing to our announcements layer. Let me fix that. So a presentation. So if I click on this, you'll see that it's showing up on the media layer. Now there's some slide content there. You're not seeing it because I had the wrong screen selected, but there you go. So there's our video file. It's playing back to this media layer. And so you may be like, well, what if I'm playing a bumper video and I want that to show up and I have and that's going to play back to that media layer. You can actually play back your video to the slide layer by just right-clicking and saying convert media to slide element. So when I do that and I click on the video, it's now going to play that file back to the slide layer instead of the media layer. This is the same as going into the editor and just like clicking this button and adding a shape or adding media shape and filling it with media, or just adding media directly to the slide. It's just converting that automatically for you, making it look nice, does it really quickly and easily. So that's one way, and that's another way if you're ever trying to, let's say, have a background video continue, but play a foreground video on top of it. You can convert your regular video to a slide element, and then that background video will still keep looping behind it, and you could play another video on top of it, and that looping background will stay there the whole time. So that's just a couple tips about that. If we go back in here and we go to Edit Looks, again, this is where we're going to enable and disable the different layers on our different screens. So this, now that we converted this to a slide element, now it will show up on the streaming screen, where before, when it was a media element, it would not show up. So we can play this now and you'll see that it shows up on both screens. But if I clear that out and go to another song here, and this is playing to the media layer, and I go to my stream screen, you'll see nothing is there because that's playing back to that layer that's not enabled. Now you can switch between looks throughout your service or gathering by setting up different look presets. So you could say, I like this preset, I'm going to add a new one, and now I can go through and like adjust these different presets based on what I want. So maybe this preset, I have it set up like this, and then the default preset, everything's on all layers or whatever. So you can go and adjust that on the fly there. And I'm going to set this back to our template there and do that. There we go. So yeah, and again, setting up that screen, adding a new placeholder is very easy. We just go to Screens, Configure Screens, and then we're just going to add in a new audience screen. We'll go down to New Placeholder, and we can choose any size we want. Now, if we're streaming this, again, this is more about getting the right ratio and less about the right size. So you could set this up as 1280 by 720, but then in your output settings, choose a 1080p stream, and it's just going to scale that up, and it'll look great. But usually just set it to the size you want to stream it. But you would just select this, and now you have a new screen. You can name it whatever you want, and this is the placeholder that you can stream to. The only time that you would want, or I shouldn't say the only time, but one of the times that you would want to use the same screen that you're using in your room online is, let's say you have side screens that you're doing iMeg on, and now you're going to control that. You're going to send your content through ProPresenter, and then the output of ProPresenter is going to go to those iMeg screens, and those iMeg screens are exactly what's being sent online. That's when you would want to have a physically connected output that you're also actually live streaming. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Questions?
Do not USB 3 cameras, but not USB 3 cameras. No, USB 3 cameras can work, especially if they're coming through USB-C, which is a really good input solution for video. If you find one that doesn't work, send a message to our support team and we can look at it. I mean, the H10 Mini Pro comes through USB.
Yeah, and I believe the Elgato capture cards are a USB-C capture card, right? I believe so.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Some of them. They also have PCIe and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
So the other questions that were asked that haven't been addressed yet are requirements for hardware, knowing that it's a new feature and might have new requirements and that sort of thing. Someone asked, do eGPUs work? Yes, they work with ProPresenter, so they will also work with this. One thing to keep in mind is, I'll give you a personal example. I've always hated when I contact customer support for a company and they say, download new drivers for your hardware. I'm like, that's not going to do it. It's not going to do it. But guess what? It does it.
Yeah.
When I tried to run the live stream for the first time from my PC, so not a Mac, it would not work. Nothing happened. And so one of the support guys said, we'll have you download the most recent drivers for your NVIDIA card. I was like, no. I went and did that, and guess what? It started working right away.
Right.
So there are so many different GPUs out there, and like AMD has their GPUs, NVIDIA has their GPUs, and Intel, and we support all of those. And we have to do our best to support all of them in their different setups. Like there's hybrid setups that have both. There's setups that have one or the other. The setups that have eGPU. So if you find a setup that doesn't work, so contact our support team. So you can let us know, and we can figure it out with you. But the other thing is just make sure you download the newest driver, because it even for older devices like the one you're using right now, I know drivers come natively with Mac, but still, like if you're using a PC that's older, try down the most recent driver for your GPU.
Yeah, and even if you, that brings up that, before you try recording in ProPresenter, you're really going to want to make sure your drivers are updated, especially on the PC side. And speaking of updates, if you're like, hey, it keeps crashing when I open, there was a known issue that was immediately patched. So 7.1.1 is out that fixes that issue. So always make sure the software is fully up to date, or go, if you're like, I can't even open the software, go to the website and go check and see if there is a new version that you can download. And there's a version history. So if you run into an issue and you're like, this version, there's some random issue with my operating system that no one else seems to have and I can't figure it out, you can always downgrade back a version or so and have that older version that might have been working fine for you. So just keep that in mind, that you can always go get those downloads and keep things up to date. And those patches and those fixes are coming out all the time. The development team has been killing it with all of the updates and trying to make sure this is as great as it can be, as fast as it can be. And that's one of the best parts about Pro 7, is that I know that we're not going to be waiting a long time for some sort of new feature, new update, or a new fix. These are coming rapidly, rapid fire, and it's awesome. It's really cool.
I'm glad to hear that you see that. Okay, so on the requirement side of things, I'm curious. Right now, you were running 2 live videos inputs with the props and with the regular slides. So what is your current PC or Mac requirements? Like, what are the tech specs on what you're using right now?
Yeah, let's go take a look at that, and I will pull up some live video here. So we got Cody on screen there, and let's just go to about this Mac, and we can see how terrible this old 2013 is and how well it's doing or handling things here about this Mac. There we go.
Do you have anything else open on that Mac?
I have Safari, just working with Companion. I was editing some stuff in there, but that's it. I don't have,
Okay.
well, and Companion is running in the background. And I'll talk
Okay.
about what Companion is in a minute here. But yeah, so this is late 2013. This is a 2.9 gigahertz i5 from 2013 with only 8 gigs of memory and an older this GeForce card with 1 gig of memory on it. So it's not nothing super awesome. It has a serial ATA drive, so it doesn't even have a solid state hard drive in it. And then as far as memory goes, we got 8 gigs of RAM on this bad lad, which for comparison, my PC that I do editing on has 64 gigs of RAM. So this is not great, but it's still doing the job. And I mean, we could pull up activity monitor and stuff like that and look at how things are performing as we're doing it. But it really is great performance and is really running very solidly for me. The only crash. Go ahead.
I can't really see because it's so far behind. I'm watching the live video since I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
have a video view. So do you have activity monitor open?
No, I can pull that up a minute and see what we got here. Active. See what we got going on here, and then we can throw in. That's Companion. Where's activity monitor? You can see that. Okay, here we go. So we're running at 40% CPU usage, 36%. Activity monitor is using 24%. Companion is using 33%. So I mean, it's
pretty good.
Yeah, and
I mean, that's weird because
I'll click through some slides here, and I mean we're jumping up into around 80%, but I'm still throwing on different stuff there. So
and that's obviously you're not encoding to a
stream
disk right now or to stream,
right?
Which would typically adds about 10% around there at least. So if your computer is capable of doing that, then that's awesome. I mean, in terms of specs, like 8 gigs of RAM, an i5 from 2013, and hardly dedicated graphics, is still it's a hard stretch to say, hey, do 3 screens and a live stream from.
Yeah.
But I would definitely recommend people try it and see if it works for them, see what their utilization is, see how their experience is, and if they need to upgrade. But don't just go upgrading without trying something first.
Yeah, and just because the software can do something doesn't mean your computer can handle doing said task. So just because you could set it all up doesn't mean that like your 2013 iMac should be doing all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's really
7 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
And using 8 to 9 year old hardware because it's Mac.
Right, exactly. So it's not anything fresh off the shelf, and like Cody said, Mac stuff fresh off the shelf isn't that fresh anyway. So you can't expect the world of something older to like, oh, I got this old Mac Mini from 2013. Let's see how many video inputs and outputs we can do and do all. Like you're asking too much of your hardware. You're not necessarily asking too much of the program. You're just asking too much of the hardware and what your hardware can handle. So yeah, do we have any more questions, Cody, before we wrap things up?
No, that was the gist of it. I will say that for people who are just on now, we did cover audio inputs, video inputs, switching inputs, setting up your inputs, a lot of inputs, some of the requirements, some different setups. So we covered a lot in this already. So if you're having a question right now you're thinking of, we probably already covered it. But if we didn't cover it after you watch some of this, feel free to pop it in the comments later and we'll still respond to them.
Yeah, totally. And I'm going to go crazy time and throw on the news reporters here at the end to say goodbye, even though, again, my camera feed here just looks terrible. But thank you. Thank you guys all for joining us and being here for this. And again, if you have questions or comments or whatever, there is one tutorial out about all of this stuff and another tutorial that'll be coming soon in the future that talks more about, setting up your video inputs and using this kind of more as a switcher and doing those lower thirds and all of that kind of stuff, things that we covered today, but just a little bit more in depth that you can easily watch over and over again, because there's nothing like spending some good old time with Brad and ProPresenter 7. So thanks again for hanging out with us here. I'm going to escape out of full screen, go back to an announcement loop here and send us off. You got anything left for us, Cody?
Awesome. No, just thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you leave those comments. We appreciate your input because it helps drive what we do.
Yeah, 100%. So thank you guys for being here and joining us. And I am going to try get us a graphic to get out of here because I'm controlling way too many things at one time, but it's working out. And yeah, we'll see you guys later. Have a great one.